Over the past week, there have been a number of major developments in our region that I think we should take a look at. Um, in particular, there are three articles that have come out that I think provide us with a good starting point to discuss the consequences of these actions. The first one was by Ron Ben Yishai in Ynet, which was published on May 5th. And the title is Hate-Ridden Houthis, Why They're Hard to Hit and What Can Deter Them, end quote. It's a very important article that I would strongly recommend everybody to read and consider seriously. A little history. A few years ago, some friends of mine and I got together to consider how Israel could deal with an outer blockade in the Bab el Mandeb by the Houthis and the Iranians. This was motivated by our understanding of what the Houthis, with Iranian help, had done to Saudi Arabia and the UAE during their war down there. And we started thinking what would happen if they instituted, the Houthis with the Iranians, instituted a naval blockade of Eilat, what we call an outer blockade of Eilat. Honestly, at the time, we really didn't consider drone or ballistic missile attack from Yemen, but it was something that we knew was a very real possibility. So now we're engaged in such a conflict with the Houthis. And to call them madmen would be an understatement. Now, with the introduction of the Americans, there's been a lot of damage done on Houthi infrastructure. It hasn't deterred them. And if you read Ron Ben Ishai's article, you'll understand why. The Houthis are they're Islamists, they're jihadis, and they're completely indifferent to the suffering of their people. I mean, if you have any questions about why they're doing that, look at Hamas and how they use their civilians, I call them civilian auxiliaries, as human shields. So we started thinking, what could we use to deter these people? And at the time, I came up with three things. One was to build out our ballistic missile capability. This was conventional ballistic missile capability that could provide Israel with a means of immediate, prompt response to a Houthi missile, drone, or attack, or an outer blockade. The second thing I thought of was developing a container ship that could be quickly modified to launch containerized long-range rocket artillery, LoRa extended range versions that would give us the possibility of sending perhaps a squadron of 5 of these converted ships, each holding maybe 100 missiles, with extended ranges at least out to 500 kilometers, with pinpoint accuracy, guarded by our SAR 6 class corvettes for air defense, anti-missile defense. And what this would do would give us an ability to hammer, certainly a port like Hodeidah and other smaller ports on the Red Sea, and possibly further inland to Houthi positions around Sana'a. This depends on the capabilities of these ship-launched missiles. The third thing I thought that we could do was develop a drone, a medium bomber. And I thought that we could do that based on the World War II German Horten 229. It's a flying wing. And that we could make it out of thermoplastics and would have the range to make it there and back. And it would carry a medium bomber's load of rocket, air-to-ground rockets, or glide bombs, or even conventional bombs, drop bombs, conventionally dropped bombs. This would give us a bomber force at least. It was a force that could carry as much as the F-15 EX, which is now being produced. But I didn't really think that we would have co-production rights for the aircraft, or that we would get enough of them in time to make a difference. And unfortunately, I was right on that score. So make our own drone bombers, medium bombers with the same capabilities out of thermoplastics. Okay. When we presented these ideas, the Air Force in particular um, basically sabotaged everything. We don't need missiles, we don't need drone bombers, and the Navy was a no-show on the the arsenal ships. That's what I called them, that I was proposing. And the Air Force made short shrift of them as well. The Air Force has been the biggest problem in terms of developing alternative weapon systems that could substitute for manned aircraft. And it's really a tragedy. We see what's going on now. We just launched a maximum effort with 20 aircraft dropping 50 weapons on Yemen and on Houthi positions. And yes, it looks very impressive, but it's useless. We can continue doing this at great expense, and it just isn't going to do anything. They'll repair everything, and then we'll have to come right back and do it again. So, do we have time to build any of these equipment that we suggested? Um, Maybe the container ship, the arsenal ship. But as far as really hammering the Houthis, Ben Ishai basically indicated that the only way we could deter the Houthis is if we really hurt them badly. How do we do that? I've said it before, and I'm going to repeat myself. We first have to give them we have to provoke them. And we do that by taking out the main mosque in Sana'a. That will guarantee a crowd, maybe of close to 1 million people, 1 million armed Houthis in Sana'a, screaming for our blood, at least 500,000 to 1 million, let's say. And that is what we hit with a Jericho 4 ballistic missile armed with a neutron bomb. Now, killing a minimum of 500,000 armed Houthis is pretty much what's needed to shock whoever survives in the Houthi leadership, shocks them into, well, surrendering. I guess that's the best term. And if that doesn't work, then we go after their villages in the mountains with C-130s, transports dropping Moabs, massive ordnance bombs. Does it sound like genocide? I'll accept that. But it's either them or us. And I'd rather we see the end of them rather than they gain a victory against us. This sounds very hard, but as Ben Ishai indicated, the only way that we possibly can defeat these crazies is to shock them to such an extent that they stop. They stop. Whether out of calculation or because they just don't have the manpower anymore. And if that doesn't work, then we always have EMPs that we can drop over northern Yemen, and that would fry out whatever remains of their ballistic missile and drone force. So these are three things that we have the capability of doing that would eliminate the Houthi front. Whether we're capable of doing that or not is not an issue. Whether we're willing to do it is quite another. Neither the military high command nor our government right now, I don't have any faith in them at all. They just go ahead and keep launching these stupid, long-range, useless, pinpoint strikes against an enemy that is totally indifferent to such attacks. The second piece appeared on May 7th, 2025, as an editorial in the Jewish Breaking News. It's called "Houthis Vow to Continue Attacking Israel in the Wake of U.S. Truce," unquote. As we all know, when President Trump met the new Premier of Canada, Mr. Carney, in the White House, he made a rather, well, let's just put it, I'll put it kindly, an incoherent statement indicating that the Houthis had surrendered and that they weren't going to attack shipping anymore. And that because of that, he was calling off Operation Rough Rider, and we'd won. Well, let's look at this a little bit more carefully. The Houthis did indicate through Omani intermediaries that they were willing to stop attacking U.S. ships and other merchant shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb if the Americans would stop attacking them. Now this, from what I understand, was suggested to them by the Iranians. It's called divide and conquer. And Trump, who always wants to be a man of peace, immediately jumped at this seemingly surrender, or seeming surrender on the part of the Houthis, and said, fine, we're stopping our attack on Yemen. Well, excuse me for asking this, but what about Israel? The Houthis immediately said, no, Trump didn't get it right. We're going to continue attacking Israel-bound traffic, merchant traffic, and we're still going to be attacking Israel with ballistic missiles and drones, which they have done. So what happened? Well, Trump, as I expected, threw us under the bus. And he's given no indication that even if the Houthis continue to fire missiles and fly drones and attack against Israel and attack our shipping in the Red Sea, that he will reinitiate Operation Rough Rider, which is the carrier and land-based attacks against Yemen, the Houthi positions in Yemen. So I want people to understand who and what we're dealing with in the White House. He wanted this to happen. The Iranians have been actually complaining to the Houthis that Houthi attacks on the Americans have been interfering with their discussions with the White House over the nuclear issue, which we all know is a farce. But so the Houthis caught on to this divide and conquer idea, so they stopped. They made this statement. And now, Trump can come into the Middle East for his upcoming trip, with a victory under his belt. We defeated the Houthis. Drum roll. Well, no, he didn't. What he did was played right into the Iranian hands, stupidly. And so the Iranians will continue firing at Israel and flying drones against Israel and attacking our ships. You think this guy cares? No. I mean, all this guy cares about is optics. Okay? So we have to understand this. And this is why I indicated before, the key thing we have to do is go for the jugular. And we have to take the Houthi front off the map and not even tell the Americans what we're doing. Just, we should go ahead and do it. The last article, which was an exclusive in Reuters, by Alexander Cornwell, May 7th, 2025. The title was U.S., Israel discuss possible U.S.-led administration for Gaza. Well, surprise, surprise. The Americans want Gaza. Just like they want Greenland, and just like they want Canada, and just like they want Panama, and who knows what else. And we shouldn't even be in discussions with them. Gaza, for the 50th or 60th time, I'm going to repeat this, is part of biblical Israel. Number two, we've spilled an inordinate amount of our blood fighting there over the past year and a half. And we're supposed to just turn it over to the Americans? Well, Bibi and the high command, Bibi in particular and the high command, have been trying desperately, ever since the war started, to hand this problem off to somebody else. And it goes right back to this whole issue of the day after. And Bibi Netanyahu in particular has been a big proponent of just handing Gaza over to anybody just to get rid of it, rather than solve the problem decisively by getting rid of the people there, annexing it, and repopulating it with Jews. He's just begging people, take it off my hands. Please, take it off my hands. Why are the Americans so insistent on taking over Gaza? They have an idea, it's not a bad idea, to kind of outflank the China's Belt and Road Initiative, particularly as it goes through the Suez Canal, by linking the Gulf by rail to Israel's Mediterranean ports. And instead of Ashdod now, they're looking at Gaza for them to build a big port there that they will own, like the Panama Canal was at one point. And they would literally rail everything from the Gulf to this port, American-controlled port. And they talk about Gaza being a Puerto Rico, their version, kind of a Middle East Puerto Rico. I want everybody to remember what happened way, way back in history when the two Hasmonean brothers were fighting for succession to the Hasmonean crown. And one of them invited the Romans in. And we all know how that happened. It should be a cardinal principle of Israeli foreign and geopolitical policy never, ever to allow any foreign troops on our soil, particularly in an area that we have fought and bled and died for, like Gaza. But we are engaged in conversations with the Americans. And we all know that Bibi Netanyahu is nothing more than a doormat when it comes to the Trump administration. So if you think about what could happen to an American-administered Gaza if a Democratic administration took over in Washington, you should lose sleep, because such an administration could literally turn it over for God knows what, to become a Palestinian state in conjunction with the PA, or not. You know, maybe the Americans would like two Palestinian states, one in Yehuda and Shomron and one in Gaza. It's a possibility. And so the idea of turning over administrative control to the Americans in Gaza should be grounds for a government to fall. I would be in favor, if Bibi Netanyahu is seriously considering doing this, or if Ron Dermer is seriously involved in these negotiations, then the Likud better wake up and say to both of them, goodbye. Literally, goodbye. Bibi has clearly outlived his usefulness. He's dangerous now. And as far as Ron is concerned, he's a dear friend of mine, but I would never want to see him back in anywhere near um, an important position within an Israeli government. He seems to forget that he's an Israeli and not an American. And so what are we going to do about this? This attempt on the Americans to take over Gaza? Well, remember, Trump is going to the Middle East very soon. And he's going to present this, you know. We beat the Houthis, and we're going to take over Gaza, and it's going to be Trump land, right? It's going to be just like that crazy AI video that Trump put out on Truth Social. That was, I mean, it was like a hallucination. But this is what he's thinking about. And what of our blood and our dead and our historical rights to this land? Well, when you're talking about a guy like Bibi, he doesn't care about that. All he cares about is staying in power for one more day. So these are things to think about. So this is Jonathan Pollard.